Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jeremy Forcier with the Mortgage Coach Takeover here today on Tuesday, and I am pumped because I slept like a baby, which I know my guest Rick Warner is going to debate that that's not a good thing because he says babies don't sleep well. But I have like one of my best friends here on the planet, and he's been a referral partner, business partner of mine for how long now, Rick? 13 years, something like that?
I think that the first time you finally got in front of me was 2008. So that's 14 years. It was
Wow.
actually, I can tell you, it was September 2008 that you sat in my office. We'll tell that story in a minute. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's 14 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so really excited to have you here, man. Just such a great human being, an enthusiast of all things life related and growth related. So, Rick, why don't you, rather than me give you the introduction, why don't you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Uh, Golly. Okay. So what do I should have gotten a list of questions. First one, tell us about yourself. It's funny because on one hand, I'm my favorite topic. On the other hand, I feel uncomfortable talking about myself. I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. Um, I'm a fail forward kind of guy. Man, I
So listen, I'm going to stop him right there. This is why I love Rick.
yeah,
He is super honest. Okay, so he's one of the most honest people. He's extremely humble, and he's always looking to grow, and he's not afraid to share his pain and be real. And
that's great.
that's is what is so attractive to me about you, Rick, is that you really, really do care about helping other people, but you also really, really, really care about helping yourself first, which is very important. Like that you're good, personally, professionally, spiritually, all those different things. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so attracted to you. So, what are we going to talk about here today? We are going to talk about our story on how we met, because I think it's very important in times like this. Because as Rick mentioned, when I first was introduced to Rick, and I'll let him tell his version of the story, and then I'll tell the truth. Okay. When I was first introduced to Rick, right, like it was at the tail end of crazy mania right before the mortgage meltdown happened, right? So real estate was nuts, mortgage was nuts, and we went through a really hard time those following years, which is where we built our relationship. And I think that we're in similar times like that now, especially because when we go through times of euphoric originations or selling real estate, our relationship skills and sales skills get rusty because stuff is just coming in and we
It's
forget
easy.
how to
That's
do.
right.
Yeah, it's just easy, right? So we want to talk today about our story, relationships, and what realtors need right now in the market and how you can build better relationships. So Rick, I'm going to let you start. Like, tell us, how did we meet? Like, how did that go?
Well, to me, this is really one of the greatest stories that I've ever been involved in. Because it just kind of clears out a ton of my old ideas and my fears and all kinds of stuff. But the very first time we actually met, we were at opposite ends of a table, and there was kind of a failed attempt at a speaker to come. You had just moved to the area. I had heard about you. You're some rock star lender. I'm like, what does that even mean? Who is this guy? And in my mind, I totally was a rock star realtor. And I'm holding court at the end of this table, and I'm telling these people about this seminar that me and this other lender were doing. And you were like, something like, that won't work. That's not how it, whatever my idea was. And I'm like, who is this guy down there? Who's this smart aleck guy? And so it's funny when you said the debate, it's like we started off debating, right? I started off going, who, I don't like this guy. Basically, that's where I started off.
So listen, takeaway there though, for everyone who's watching, listening, will be watching this recording. I've talked about this on this forum frequently about challenging like beliefs, right? And that's like also a fundamental foundation of being in a real relationship of like
That's right.
honesty and whatnot, right? So Rick is right.
100%.
There's like 10 people at the table or eight
Yeah,
people at the table, right? And Rick is going on how this investor program, it's
that's
great.
right. I'd
And you take
forgotten even
money.
what the details
Oh,
were
I
there.
will never forget. And you take money out of your house and you buy the new house and you do,
Oh,
all of that type of
God,
stuff.
that just gives me the willies now that I'm hearing it.
And so it was really funny because in that moment I had a decision, right? And old Jeremy, because I was going through this kind of growth myself, and I was going through, losing everything at the time, and I was having an identity
Well, no,
crisis.
you weren't yet. Just for the record, you were still killing it at that moment.
I know, but internally I knew that
Okay.
like I was like I could either have chosen in that moment to be manipulative, like most salespeople are, and go,
Yeah.
"That's a great idea. You're
Yeah.
awesome,"
Yeah.
right? But instead, for one of the first times, I chose to go literally. I go, "That's not going to work,"
Yeah.
just in front
That's
of
right.
everyone. I'm like, that won't work.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, it wasn't the best first impression. I don't recommend necessarily being that bold and outspoken. But that was the basis of our first interaction was me telling you that's wrong. That's never going to work. And Rick didn't like it. You didn't like
Yeah,
it very much.
from where I was at, because I was only, so I got licensed in 2004, it's 2008. So I had, like you just said, basically 3 years of kind of fake success where I thought I was cool. I thought I knew stuff. I thought had arrived. I thought I'd finally hit the right career, all that. And so for somebody to question me, I was like, what? But only to find out I didn't know anything. And we'll get to that in a minute. But my success was, it was kind of built on a house of cards, not unlike the entire mortgage industry at that moment, right?
Right.
We didn't
Yeah,
know that, but that's kind of where we were at.
totally. So we have this first interaction and you decide that I'm a jerk, right?
Yeah, basically. So then um, somewhere or another, I think I was in charge of the local MLS at the time. You were showing up there as you should to try and create relationships with realtors. You saw me at the front and you're like, hey, I want to connect with this guy. And so you started cold calling me for an appointment. And I think you cold called me at least 5 times. I don't know for sure. And basically I kind of blew you off every time. And the
Yes.
main reason I blew you off was what? Do you remember?
You owned a mortgage company.
Yeah, I was my own originator. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? Right? Because at the time, and depending on how long you've been in the business, at the time, basically anybody could do this, right? We were giving anybody money for any reason, anybody could originate, and it was super easy. And so I'm like, why wouldn't I have an origination port to my business to go with what I really do, which is hopefully sell real estate. And I had created this little brokerage. So I had like 8 agents working for me. And I had just taken on this kind of bigger lease um, with all these agents. And I really thought I was doing kind of pretty good. And finally, I guess because of your persistence and you're like you're a super likable guy, and I can only say no to people so much, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, fine, yeah, you can come in. And I think at least once I flaked on you. I think we scheduled it, and then I'm like, hey, last minute, or I forgot, or whatever it was, and you're like, well, that's okay, let's reschedule. So finally, you're in front of me, and this is the big moment. Is you're in front of me, and I'm going, okay, here, you've got your 15 minutes or whatever. I go, I think I said something like, how many referrals are you going to give me? And you're
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly what you said. And for the record, I called him 7 times with no response. And the reason I remember is because on the 8th time, my voicemail was, hey, I read in a book by Jeffrey Gitomer that it takes 7 no's to get to a yes. So this must be my lucky time. Like, are you going to call me back and you're going to meet with me? He said, okay.
yeah.
And then he flaked on me twice.
Oh,
Not
twice.
once,
Jeez.
but twice.
That's
Once was
embarrassing too. And I don't normally, I'm not a flake, so that's kind of a bummer that I did that. But I'm not saying that didn't happen. I know I did it for at least once. Anyway,
and
so now you're
for
in
the
front of me,
record,
and
you didn't flake on me. When I say flake, you literally just canceled it last second. Like you were just
okay,
like, I wasn't important in the
I'm
moment,
too busy or
which is
whatever.
fine.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I appreciate the distinction. So now you're in front of me, and I'm like, what are you going to do for me? How many referrals are you going to give me? That's really all I want to know. And I want to hear
Yeah.
a big number. And he doesn't say a big number. He says 0. And I'm like, well, that's not a good start, And he's like, listen, if I told you that I was going to give you referrals, and I need at least 10 of you for my business to work, what am I going to tell the other people? It doesn't work. The equation doesn't work. I'm not going to give you any referrals. I would be working under false pretenses, right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
well, okay, listen, here's the other thing. I'm an originator. Why are you even here? Like, I don't get this. I am my best loan guy right now. And you said something like, hey, that may not always be the case. Now, you didn't know that things were going to blow up. None of us did. But you said that may not always be the case. And if it isn't, ultimately, at some point, I want to be that guy. and I want to earn that. And I'm like, and I think it was that conversation first. Then it was, how many referrals are you going to give me? And you said, listen, I could give you referrals, or what do you really want? I want more business. He goes, yeah, exactly. How about if I teach you how to get more business? So in other words, I'm not going to give you fish. I'm going to teach you how to fish.
Yep.
And that resonated with me. I'm like, well, that sounds better, actually. Right.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, like, you think you know what you want, but then you find out, wait, there's actually something better. What you offered was better. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. But to be honest, I also didn't believe you. Why would I, I have no reason to believe that you know how to do that, or that you're going to do anything, or that's even going to work.
Yep.
So what the real magic is that after that, you just kept showing up with teachable things. I think the very first thing you did was you dropped off a Jeffrey Gitomer book.
Yep.
And then you said, hey, have you read this book? And I said, no, because I don't read books.
Right.
And you're like, hey, it's pretty awesome. So I started reading it. And then I think it was either that day or a week later or two, I get lost in the time. But at some point you go, hey, this guy, Jeffrey Gitomer, is coming to speak in San Francisco, and I'd love to host you and your whole team to come and listen and meet him. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds awesome. And then he really started to coach me. And that's where it was like, I really started to just be like, I really like this guy. Too bad I'm an originator. I can't give him any business, but man, if I did have business, I certainly would give it to him. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the short version of the story, but that's what happened.
Yeah. And so here's some takeaways that I just want everyone to make sure you don't miss and write down, is that none of this would have happened without persistence, right? Persistence is critical. Like, one of the keys to building, good business relationships, which can also turn into awesome personal relationships. They don't have to, though, right? They don't have to, but they can, like in our case, they did. But making sure that you're persistent. Like, think about when you are really interested in someone non-business related and you want to date them, right? You have to pursue that person. You can't wait for that person to pursue you. And it's exactly the same in our business relationship. So making sure we're routinely reaching out to important contacts of not just people we're in relationship with, but people we really want to pursue and be in one with. It's not going to happen on its own. The second thing that I want to make sure that we, take out and highlight is that where Rick was in his business and with his businesses being a realtor and owning a mortgage brokerage at the time seems like an impossible, like a waste of time, right? It seems like a waste of time on the surface. You have to get past whatever looks like the obstacle, and you have to go, I really want to work with that person, because there's always a way. There is always a way that you can find out to really work with someone. You just need to get to know them first, and you have to be patient. Okay. The last one that I just want to highlight from what you said, Rick, so far, that's easy way to, have a good takeaway, is that he said the word educate multiple times. Like, I was never selling anything. I wasn't coming in with rate sheets. And if you're making rate sheets, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that that's what everyone does. They come in with like, oh, we have this great new 5-year arm, or they have this. It's always like product driven. It's never personal driven. Like, and so I was really focused on like, hey, this is the stuff that I'm into. Personal development. Like, I really like this author. I think you should come. I think this could add value to you. So I was never really selling anything. And the last but not least, I was really honest. So here's a big mistake, Rick, that people make. And I think that, well, you absolutely can attest to this probably, is that a lender meets with you, right? And I'm sure you still get calls and you meet with people sometimes. Like, it is what it is. And what I hate is that people will sit down and go, hey, so I like you, I'm going to refer you and you refer me. And that's a lie. Like, in our industry, that's literally a lie. Or you're just buying like junk internet leads and then you're trying to send them to a realtor to waste their time. And so making sure that, like, at the beginning, that the foundation is building on honesty. Because if you're doing the logical math, you would say, so you offended him first, and then he owned a mortgage brokerage company, and then you told him you're going to give him no referrals, which is what he asked for. This doesn't seem like a good equation. But the winning part of the equation is the magic. And that was uncovering things that could be very beneficial to Rick's business and life that aren't surface level, right? Going one level deeper, spending the time to drop off books, to follow up, to try to get the appointment again after he had to cancel because it wasn't important to him at that time, which I want you all to understand that's okay. And that's normal. I talk to so many originators that I mentor on a weekly basis who are just pissed off because they're like, the realtor, won't call me back. It's so stupid. I have so much to get off your high horse, man. You are pursuing them. They are not pursuing you. So don't take it personal when stuff comes up, and let that be motivation, right? Rather than deflation for you to try to win. How do I win this over? How do I actually get that a point and make a game out of it? So let's keep going, Rick. I love this. I just want to get those takeaways in, like while we're doing this.
Can I just add one more takeaway that you kind of said, but I want to say it in a kind of different way. Come from contribution.
Yeah.
Be there with something for that person, and it will be received. If you're coming there for yourself, if you're, like you said, if you're, whatever, like and it wasn't rocket science to figure out what did I really want. I wanted more business. Well, in my pipsqueak realtor brain, that meant you giving me referrals. It never occurred to me that it could be much bigger than that. And so you did this brilliant idea of like, hey, let's make it bigger. Let me give you more than what you want. You want referrals? Yeah, okay, fine. Anybody can theoretically do that. How about if I teach you to be badass? So you're not counting on anybody.
Yep, exactly. Right? Yep.
And this is the other part, is the follow-up part. You then did that. So it wasn't just Jeffrey Gitomer. It was like, I remember one time you're like, hey, it's November. Let's go have lunch and talk about your business plan. I'm like, a business plan? I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have anybody coaching me, it was the follow-up, and it was real. And it was, this is what I'm doing, because you know what? We're realtors and mortgage people. We're in the foxhole together.
Yeah.
And create that bond.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you did with us, is you created that bond. We're in this together. We're both, okay, you're calling realtors, I'm calling actual people. But at the end of the day, we're both out there trying to make business happen. We have that common bond.
Yeah. I love that you just admitted that realtors aren't actual people. I appreciate that.
Did I say we're not actual people? I don't think I said that.
You said I'm calling realtors and you're calling actual people. And I love that.
Oh, that's right. Then I guess I did say that.
So let's keep going. So this is the infancy of our relationship.
Right.
This is me. You still own the mortgage brokerage at this time. I'm really interested in Rick because of his confidence, and I just liked being around him at the end of the day. So what happened next?
So what happens next is the mortgage meltdown. I mean, literally that month or a month. I mean, I had signed that lease, and then the meltdown happened September 2008. And so quickly, the entire banking industry changes, and no longer can you just anybody be originator. Like the whole brokerage channel just kind of went away. And for me, since it was always a throwaway item, I quickly was like, we don't need that. Let's focus on what we're doing. And you had by then been there all along. So it was automatic. I mean, it was without any thought whatsoever. And prior to this, I had a preferred lender who at some point you guys actually ended up working, and he was a great guy, but he wasn't you. He wasn't what you brought to the table for me. And so when it was time and I didn't have it, you were my guy. You were my guy since I think it was like 2009, since today. Like literally, I've never referred anybody else since that time.
I love that. That's awesome. And and that, I like hearing that. I'm a verbal praise guy. Here, I want to make sure I point this out to everyone. Once again, I'm going to keep stopping and takeaways, is that this isn't normal. Okay. But it can be. Okay. It's really seeking out those relationships, right? It does take a lot of time and effort, and you have to find people that you like, because that's where the magic really is that if you don't like the person, all those business relationships are just going to have a season, and that's okay too. But seeking out the ones that you really like is where the magic really happens. So then you and I go through a really hard time together, right?
Exactly. I mean, for me, I don't know what I know the month of when things got really bad for me. It was literally a year later, September 2009. I cannot pay my mortgage. You know, I thought it was a big deal. I bought $1 million house, and that used to mean something. And, you know, I had 3 kids. I had 1 baby, like I think it was, I had a baby that was like 3 months, or sorry, a 3-year-old. I had diapers. I had, you know, a big, huge pile of expenses, and I had no money coming in, and I was terrified. I was terrified. And, oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't know what to do. And you were one of the first people that I called. I'm like, dude, I'm in trouble here, you know? And, I remember at the time I had kind of changed my brokerage, my own brokerage, to work for a bigger firm. They took on all my expenses, which is great. And they offered this coaching program that was like $800. And I was like, I don't have $800, but I clearly need to do something, right? I mean, actually, let me back up a minute. The first thing I thought of was maybe I should quit.
Yep. I remember that.
Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I blah, blah. And then I was thinking about it. It's like my expenses were so high at the time. There was no borrowing money from my parents. There was no way out of this, right? If I get out, I am out. I'm going to lose the house. I mean, everything's going to go bad. And the other thing is, where else is a guy like me? I didn't go to college. I have no real skills. Where else am I going to have the opportunity to really make a good living? And so what became obvious was I just need to get better at what I'm already doing. I really need to learn how to be a great realtor. I need to learn how to, you know, start living outside of my comfort zone and do stuff that, you know, helps me actually generate business. Because up to that point, like we talked about, it was just kind of happening on its own. And so there was this training thing, and they were letting lenders come to this as well. And I think I had introduced you to our brokerage, and I think you clear me up on that, but I think you were part of our brokerage at the time. Not part of it, but I mean, you were our preferred lender for the whole brokerage by then,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you did this coaching program with me. And for me, that was a game changer, right? We did this together. The program itself was amazing, but you and I we were doing it, you know, in conjunction with each other. And it just solidified that you know, that bond that we have, because we had to do some stuff. Like, we had to make these calls. And for me, it was super uncomfortable. I don't know how uncomfortable it was for you, but for me, it was really uncomfortable. And, but we were in it together. Like I said, we were in the foxhole doing this thing together, and it really bonded our relationship.
And so another takeaway, right, is that find something you can do together, right? Find something you can do together with your relationships. And this was a big commitment, by the way. Is this program, we had to drive, first of all, an hour and a half once a week for 8 weeks in a row from where we lived.
Yeah.
Okay. To go to this live 1-day thing for 8 weeks, right?
Every Monday. Yep.
Every Monday. And I will never forget. And by the way, it's super uncomfortable for me too. Of course, you know, we had to cold call, I remember.
It wasn't a cold call, but it was definitely calling. It was and asking for business.
Yes.
Or at least for our end. I don't know if it was different for you, but for us, it was, you know, the first day, it was 11 o'clock. We're going to go to lunch. The lady says, all right. And she pulls up this screen on the thing. It says, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go through your contacts, and you're going to call. You're going to just push the number, and you're going to call and say this. Oh, hey, Jeremy, it's Rick. I'm taking this really great class right now, and we're having a contest to see who can generate the most leads. Who do you know that's thinking of buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate that I can call today? That was the script. And I was like, I'm not doing scripts, right? I'm bigger than that. And I'm certainly not going to ask my friends for business.
Yes.
And, but dude, I was in so much fear, and I was so like, I have to do something. I was even willing to do that. And you know, that's the message. If you've got people, I'm imagining you got mortgage guys sitting there going, wait, things were going great. I thought I had this, and now all of a sudden I don't, right? And you might be at that same place I was at in 2009. By the way, I might be there again in a couple of months. Like, who knows how bad this thing's going to get? But that first dive of like, I'm in big trouble here. But then once you started making the calls, and I don't know, do you remember your calls, how they went?
Of course, they were awful. Yeah. And so when I say they were awful, they were very uncomfortable. Okay, because I wasn't used to. I've never done a script before this. I have never called and asked so directly.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was nerve wracking. What was amazing, though, a big takeaway for me doing it was that people want to help you.
exactly. It
Like
was
it
the
was
craziest
such a
thing.
trip, right?
Yeah,
Like you would call and say, "Hey, we're doing this contest, seeing how many referrals we can generate, and I need your help." Right? I need your help is the key. I need your help. You
yeah,
know?
exactly. And do you know the very first? I remember the very first guy I called, who he was a tennis buddy, whatever. He's a doctor. I'm like, yeah, I don't think he'll pick up. He picks up. I'm like, oh hey Barry, yeah, so I'm taking this class right now, and it's great, and we're having a contest, and I'm just stammering through this thing, like it's like I can barely read the paper, shaking. I'm trying to read the words, and he says, "You're having a contest," and I'm like, yeah, and what? Who do you know that that's thinking about buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate? That I could call today. Like I'm just like I could barely breathe. I'm so nervous and terrified of this call. And he says, "Oh, I was just talking to my friend. His son's trying to buy a house. Do you want his number? Would that count for your contest?" I go, "Yes." Right.
Yeah.
And do
Yep.
you know who that was, Jeremy?
Yeah. Well, it's a
Yeah,
client of mine.
yeah, it's Joe. It's Joe,
Yeah.
and who we're currently trying to sell them their second home, but we
Yeah.
did help them buy. I got 5 leads that day.
Right.
You
So
know.
hold on, time out.
Yeah.
So you got 5 leads that day
Yeah.
from doing something that you didn't want to do
Yep.
that was uncomfortable.
100%.
You guys, we all need to be doing things that we don't want to do that's uncomfortable. So whether that is calling 10 new people every single day, whether that is sending out 10 mortgage coach total cost analysis every single day, even if people didn't ask for them, whatever it is, we need to spend an hour a day minimum of being uncomfortable because magic will happen. So
Exactly. I have 5 leads, 2 closed sales. Both of them went to you, right? It was the other one was
yeah,
Christian. The other one was
yeah.
Christian. Remember?
Christian Williams, one of my all-time favorite clients. Love that guy.
Who Christian ultimately stopped using me. I did sell him 2 houses, but he ultimately stopped using me. But he kept using Jeremy, which is great.
Oh, I wasn't going to say it, but it is a true story as well.
It's okay.
So we're going through a hard time. I mean,
Yeah.
most people know my story, but I lost everything during that meltdown,
Yeah.
right? I lost houses. I owed $400,000 in debt between IRS, personal loans, a
Yeah.
loan shark named Gary, the whole thing. It was a really dark time for me. And I will tell you that it was very comforting to go through it with someone else, not from a codependency standpoint, which is
Right.
a toxic style relationship,
Correct.
right? But from a standpoint of that, I could be honest, and you can always share pain and be real, but not if you're not willing to do the work. No one wants to listen to someone complain. And
Right.
I didn't ever complain about my circumstances. They were all
Ever.
my
That's right.
choices that I was accountable to.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing. It was terrible. We live in a not so big little place. Okay. Rick and I. And so guess what? Everyone knows everything. Like what
Right.
happens. It's just the way it is. But I was willing to be uncomfortable with Rick, right? I was willing to go, let's do the work. Let's get out of this and let's do it together. So let's keep going on. I want you to keep narrating this story. So what is this? This is 2009, 2010 now?
This is 2000. That's February 2010 is when we signed up for that class. I don't know
Cool.
why I have all these crazy dates. By the way, 33 years ago today was the earthquake in 1989. Anyway, yeah. So we basically we continued to fail forward together. You know what I call our story survivors of the same shipwreck.
Oh, I love
Right?
it.
If you're in a ship, if you're in a like the Titanic and you're one of the survivors, like only you and that person know what that feels like.
Yep.
And that's to me, that's what I feel like. I didn't have the same exact downside. Like I didn't actually lose my house. I was on the verge of it, but luckily I didn't. I had some other buffers in there. But it was similar in nature in terms it was like it was bad. We were not living high on the hog. We were barely making it and or not making it. But we both did the work required to come out of the other side. And I'll say that Jeremy catapulted way above wherever I went to. And maybe that's partially because he went down so far, and I loved going through that with him. I love the authenticity and the honesty. And I love, if you haven't heard his story about when his coaching company called him and said, are you a fraud? He's like, yes, I am a fraud. Because at the same time, everybody thought he was amazing. Nobody knew how much struggle he was having. He was speaking at conferences, he was doing all this stuff. And in reality, he was a disaster, right? And I'm not telling a story he hasn't told. It's one of my favorite stories. I love this story because it's a story of redemption, right?
Yep.
And for him to then take that on, and he got coached by this really hardcore coaching company called The Core, and his life started to change. I mean, like really, really changed. But it was all about dramatic change on his part. It was all living really in a lot of discomfort, doing things he didn't want to do. And then as that happened, as he was changing, that would trickle down to me. He just brought everything he would do, he'd just bring it to me. And I'm sure he was bringing it to his other realtors, whoever would listen. I don't know how many would listen. I'm sure that there's a lot that were like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yep.
But for me, I was like, I want this, right? To the degree that I did.
Yeah.
And then eventually I became a student of that coaching program for 3 years. And he sponsored that for a little while of it. I don't want to go too far into that, but I mean, that doesn't happen without Jeremy, right? And
I think that's a great point, just so everyone knows, like, when you really believe in something, you have to make strategic bets on people, okay, in your relationships. And don't look at it from a transactional. When someone says bet, they think transactional. Like, I made a strategic relational bet, okay, on Rick. I knew, well, I should say I didn't know, I believed, like, in my core, in my heart, that if I could get him in some formal coaching, not me, not me. Like, you don't want to be the coach, just so you all know. Okay, you don't. You want to be a friend, a mentor. You want to be a peer. You want to share. You want to educate, etc. But you don't want to be the coach, right? The disciplinarian. You don't want to be that with your business relationships. It doesn't work. But I knew in my core so much that the only thing that was really stopping him was like, man, I can't afford this right now. And I was like, well, how about I help with it until you can? And I mean, how was he going to say no? Like, literally. And it wasn't like a pay to play situation where I was like paying for something to get something. I literally believed, right? It was generosity. It was like really me being so grateful for the relationship that I had and seeing where it could go. And guess what? It worked, right, Rick?
Yeah, it did. And I think at some point, and for some period of time, and I doubt that's still the case, but I became your number one referral person.
Yeah.
And it was actually before that. It was before The Core, but it continued on throughout that. I mean, we just had this bond. I mean, when I say bond, I mean literally a bond. Like, we are together. There's no separating us within our relationship, and that was a big part of it. And then I have a life that, even though the market is going to do whatever it's going to do, I have things that I do that I learned through that coaching program that I still do to this day. I don't go there anymore. I actually have my own coaching program now. And a lot of those fundamental things are based on what I learned through that program, which Jeremy introduced me to, which he still coaches for. And so here to me, this is the big message. There's nobody that's had a bigger impact on my life than Jeremy. There's nobody. I don't have this amazing life that I have today without Jeremy. It just wouldn't have happened. And think about this. If he had given up on that second cold call, or that third cold call, or the fifth one, or the seventh one, it sounds like, or if he never made that first one, where's my life today? So if you're thinking about cold calls and you're like me going, wait, I'm afraid of what that's going to mean to me, what are you leaving on the table for somebody else that you could actually change their life? If he gives up on those cold calls, I don't get what I have. I don't get it.
It's so good. I am humbled and honored. I appreciate you saying that. And it's so good. Just you guys all have that in you, right? Everyone that's watching this, like we all have the ability to literally impact someone else's life on a really high level, but it starts small, right? It always starts small. So oftentimes, you can't see the path. We can't see the path. You're looking way down the road and you can't see the finish line, et cetera. But you can see the first step in front of you. And if you just keep taking the first step over and over and over and over and over again, you don't need to see the end, right? Because the reality is there is no end. It's just taking one step at a time every single day and going through that. So Rick and I have had a crazy relationship and run. I mean, we've done over 248 transactions together. Unbelievable, over our career
Is
working
that right?
together.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, it's right. And a lot of that too was a lot of times you didn't even have benefit from it. You would refer me someone that needs to refinance, or you'd refer me someone that is buying out of the area, or you would but we track it all. So that's another takeaway. Make sure you guys track this stuff and know how important these relationships are to you, right? And see what they actually are. So I love math, and when I say math, there's an acronym I made up for it. Is that math makes all things honest, right? Metrics make all things honest. Like emotion doesn't usually, but math does. And you've been a super rich relationship for me personally and professionally as well. So let's fast forward a little bit. And you guys, if you have questions for Rick, he is a badass realtor, top agent in our area for over a decade.
Not a top agent.
Okay, so this is where Rick's full of crap and he's humble, okay? Because I pull MMI, and the mortgage people that are on this know what that is.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
I know you are. So and what I love about Rick is that he's like, I know, but I'm scratching the surface. Like I'm on this big journey, right? I want to keep going. That's what he means by that. And I feel the same way too. But the reality is with math is that you're at the top of the top in our area. It's just a fact. I mean, do you know how many realtors there are in our county?
No.
A lot, like there's thousands.
Okay.
So to be in like the top 20 every single year is a big deal.
Oh,
So
good for me.
yes, so you're amazing. You're at the top of the top, but you don't think like that, and I love that.
Right.
So what do you think right now, Rick, that people really need to focus on? Building a relationship, how to get it started, or there's a lot of people on this call or watching this right now. Our industry is full of fear right now, right? Just full of fear. I see it. It's paralyzing. I hear lots of people bringing up adversity constantly, which I got sick of last week. And because I really don't think that we are faced with adversity. Adversity is like having a spouse that you feel hates you and you can't do anything about. Adversity is like cancer. Adversity is a child who's really sick. Adversity is all these different. Adversity is like the employees that work for me that I might have to lay off and they can't pay their rent. That's real adversity, right? Like what we're doing right now, in my opinion, is just doing work. We're talking about work, and work is always hard. It's just a different hard right now. It's hard in the good times. It's hard in the bad times. Like, what would you say
and what
to
is
people?
hard? I mean,
yeah.
So a couple of things. One is whatever you're looking for, you're going to see it, right? And so if you're looking for rates are tough, I can't get a hold, if nobody's doing it, nobody's calling me back, then you're going to see that. And I'm not saying that that's not what's happening. But if you look for those opportunities where there is things and there's places where you can make a difference for people and come from contribution, you're going to see that too. And it's all, to me, it's always do the next right thing. That's it. Like Jeremy was just talking about, you don't need to know the future. What is the next thing right now? What is the thing I need to do today that is the next right thing? And then after I do that, then I do the next right thing, whatever that is, and get over the biggest, this gigantic version of all of the things that might happen. What's happening today and what can I do about it? I think, to me, that I love these C words, right? Create, community, collaboration, through collaboration, and consistency, and coming from contribution, right? Those 4 C's. So to me, that's what Jeremy did with me, right? He created a relationship We collaborated. He was consistent with what he did. He was committed to what we were doing, and we have community. He and I have community, right?
Yep.
When we talk every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, sometimes we talk about business, but almost never, right? That's our community. I know his daughter just got her license this last week, and his other daughter, who's like 3 years older, just also got her license because she didn't want to do it, whatever. She's in college. But I know about Jeremy's personal life,
Yep.
So we've created a community. We collaborate all the time. We just had a client event a couple months ago. We have another one coming in November. We do 4 events every year. We collaborate. We collaborate on coaching, we collaborate on everything, right? It's consistent. Like I said, Wednesdays at 4 o'clock, we talk. Sometimes we miss it. He's out of town, he's doing a thing, whatever, but it's on both of our calendars. 4 o'clock Wednesday, we talk, right? And
I want to point that out though, because that's a really easy tactic and takeaway that I want to make sure you guys don't miss it. Sometimes the stuff is so simple, right? Is that setting up reoccurring meetings with the relationships that are the most important to you, or the ones that you want to deepen. Setting up consistent meetings. Now, Rick and I, yeah, we talk weekly, right? Maybe it's not weekly. Maybe it's a week for the super deep ones. Maybe it's every other week a recurring appointment for other ones. Maybe it's once a month for others than that. But having recurring set appointments, make sure that you, number one, you are in front of that person all the time, right? So you're not going to miss it. We all get distracted. I am super guilty of, having relationships because it's hard to manage them all the same way. It's impossible, as a matter of fact, right? So it's hard to manage them all the same way, to make sure you're talking and you're in front of every single relationship all the time. But the ones that you really do want to grow with and you want to be in a great business / personal relationship, have a reoccurring meeting. Just have a reoccurring meeting. I have it with 3 people. Rick is the only one that I do weekly. I have 2 others that I do every other week, right? 2 others that I do every other week, but I'm always in front of those people. And we're talking about life. Rick just brought it up. When we have business, we talk about business. And when we first started, it was all about business. That's true. It was all about business and what are we doing and what are we doing. But as that relationship grows, you're going to just have a better connection, and you're going to talk about everything that's going on. Like Rick has helped me through some really hard times, even recently, like this year, he's helped me through some really hard times, some big decisions I had to make. I share everything with him about business, about how it's not going great when it's not going great, how it's amazing when it's not going great. And I'm always paranoid when it's too good. So, and he's always talking me off the ledge. Right. And the one thing that Rick has taught me over the years, and I just called him the other day, I think you're going to be proud of me. And I know that sounds very weird to say to someone, but I hold him in high regards. Right. And he always reminds me all the time, like, to not worry, like, don't live in the future so much, Jeremy. Like, don't live in what's going to happen or what's not going to happen, because I like to control. Shocker. All of us want to try to control all the things we can. And so I called up Rick and I was like, hey, I think you're going to be proud of me. I was like, I got 7 contracts 3 weeks ago, and I thought we were back. I go, it's cool, we're back. And then over the last 2 weeks, I got 1. This is true. Okay. This is just a fact of the market right now, people not buying, whatever. And I said, you know what? I'm not worried at all. Like, I just feel great. I feel great to have this time to hone my skills. I feel grateful for this time to do things that maybe I've got rusty on. I feel grateful for this time that I can be home like an hour and a half earlier every single day, and I'm sleeping an hour later every single morning. Like, I'm grateful for all that stuff, but Rick reminds me of it every single time I talk to him. Right? To make sure that I'm grateful, that I'm in the moment, and that I don't need to worry, because I always do the work and I always do the right thing again and again and again. Something that Rick also taught me, it's a big takeaway over the years, is that he's like, listen, what's great about choices, I have this written down, is that, and I don't even know if you remember telling me this, but Rick told me, hey, what's great about choices is that you get to make a choice. And if that choice doesn't work out, guess what? You get to make another one. And it's so you just get to keep making them. Oh, you don't like what happened from the choice that you made? Cool. Like, make another one, right? And correct it. So you've been a huge, huge, huge lighthouse for me, and I really appreciate it. So with people looking though right now to, like, what are realtors feeling in the marketplace right now? Like what is the sentiment, and
Yeah.
where do you see realtors making mistakes where maybe, you know, a lender can provide some of that spotlight lighthouse and help them out?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, the phone's probably just like for you guys, our buyers, like all of a sudden half of them are just gone. They're just not returning calls, or they're returning calls going, hey, you know, we're out at least for now, or they're saying, hey, we're going to wait because they think the market's going to go down. And I think part of it is that we have a responsibility in this industry to be beacons of honesty and reality, right? And to do the best we can to not buy into the emotional part of what is going on in the market, but also with our own clients. So we want to be real, just like you were real with me when we first met, and you said, hey, yeah, I'm not going to give you any referrals. That, to me, that's how we have to be with our clients. We have to be straight with them. So if you're a seller, you know, we're talking about the fact that the market isn't the same, and that the price that you saw your neighbor get, blah blah, that's just not going to happen. I just had this conversation with another mutual client of ours, Mark and Dana, and they were all excited. They were coming back. They found the house that they wanted to buy, which, by the way, that's what I want, right? I want them to buy. I want them to sell. That's how. And I had to tell them, and they said, yeah, and you know, we just need to make sure we can get 1.3 for our house. I guess I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. And they're like, but are you, what, maybe? I go, listen, it's not going to happen. I said, you're not even at 1.2, maybe 1.15. And then also, as I'm talking to them, I'm realizing that the husband loves the house, the wife kind of loves the house. And I said, listen, even if I get you the money, it sounds like it's not the right house, because you guys both need to love the house. We're not buying pants here.
Mm-hmm.
And so they appreciated that honesty. And eventually I'm going to sell their house and they're going to buy another house. But we have to be that way. However, I will say, going back to your question, where are realtors at? That was an easier conversation to have a year ago when deals were happening, right? But it's got to be consistent. And just like in your world, it's got to be consistent. We do not know where rates are going. We do not know where the housing market is going. So we can't tell them stories about things with the presumption that we do know.
Right.
And I think that people are attracted to that honesty, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, your realtors are probably, I'm imagining a little bit on the fearful side. So if it's me and I'm getting a call from somebody and I don't have a Jeremy in my life, I want somebody who's going to be kind of understanding of like, man, is it hard for you? It's hard for me too, but let's not get too wrapped up in that. What's the next right thing for us to do? What are, you know, 5 things that we could do that are going to change the outcome, and be action oriented rather than results driven?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I get the results obviously is very important, but sometimes you just got to be like, okay, I'm going to talk to 10 people today. Like you said, you know, that's where you know, the thing that you have in your coaching and we have in our coaching is we have these daily activities. These are things that we do independent of whether things are great or bad.
Yeah.
And if a mortgage person comes to me and goes, hey, I know you might be a deer in headlights right now. You thought this was it, and now all of a sudden you're struggling. Here's some actions that I've learned to take that are going to, you know, help my business. And we can do this together. Like you said, not coaching, but accountability partners. I think that's a winning formula to not only create relationships, but do good for each other.
Yep, I agree. So, do you mind talking a little bit about your daily navigator? So Rick has created, you know, he has a great, you know, program as well for realtors called Flow Academy. It's awesome. And he, you know, created this daily navigator that wasn't created for real estate agents, just so you know. When he first created it, it was created for, and it still is, anyone can use it, right? Like in their lives. And he started this string that I was on as well, where people would post like accountability and fill out this form. Like that's like a great example, in my opinion, of like just a simple value add, right? Of like, hey, try filling this out every day. Let's check in at the end of the day. Like, let's check in at the end of the week. How did it go? Like, what are some of those like simple things that we as mortgage people could bring to realtors? Like, what's on your daily navigator?
So the daily navigator is basically an accountability worksheet that I sign like a contract. In fact, in that class that we took in 2010, they created, remember that urgency story when it's like, imagine you come home and your child's dead or
Yes. Yeah.
lifeless and all stuff. And they talked about the urgency. And what I realized about 4 or 5 years ago was I don't have the urgency that I need to really be successful here. I was kind of getting lazy because I was kind of successful, but I knew I had so much more left in the tank. The urgency is totally missing here. So I created this form that was like basically a thing saying, I'm going to do these things today. I would fill it out in the morning when I felt great and I was enthusiastic and I had all the energy. And I had this, basically it was a cafeteria of all the things that I thought would help me have a successful day. And the cafeteria means I can choose any or all of those items. You don't necessarily choose them all day or all of them. So some of them are personal. There's a whole personal section, and some of them are business. So in the personal things, there's things like meditate, read a spiritual book or a learning book or some kind of spiritual reading, exercise, where I have it right here. I just filled it out. I still do this every single day. Oh, drink my greens, journal, physical therapy, and so forth. So that's on mine, that's my personal. Everybody can have different personal stuff. You may have stuff like spend time with a certain amount of time with my kids or whatever it is. And then below that is a whole section of all business stuff. So for me, it's meet with X amount of people, touch, right? In other words, have a contact with X amount of people, phone call, text, whatever. Forward questions I add in there. Those are your deeper conversations with people, and so on and so forth. So there's a bunch of business tactics, and I check the box next to which ones I intend to do that day. I quantify it, 10 people, 5 people, two thank you cards, whatever it is. And then I sign it like a contract with myself and my accountability group. I take a picture of it and I send it out to my group. Jeremy is on that group for years. My students are now on that group now. I have people that aren't in real estate at all that were doing it for a long time, and they still might be doing it. In fact, I was at some place, I was speaking somewhere, and I was teaching this Daily Navigator thing, and she goes, "Oh, is this yours?" And she held it up. She was actually a mortgage person. She goes, "Oh, we've been using this in my office. I didn't know you created it," right? Which was like, oh, I was so excited.
Yeah.
But the point is, and then so as you go through the day, as your day starts to get distracting, as your emotions start dictating your actions, right? I'm having a hard day. This great thing happened. I don't need to do the work, whatever. You have this navigator to go, no, here's the things you committed to doing just today. You did this. You yourself committed to do this. And that's your guide for, okay, things may be going sideways or whatever, but I committed to do these things today. I'm going to get them done. And you get them done and you scratch them off. And when you're done, there's a spot in there for a little bit of gratitude, right? 3 things you're grateful for, a mini journal. What did I struggle with today? What went well? What are my wins? Whatever. Write it all down, take another picture, send it back out to your group. And what happens is I go from running at, say, 60% efficiency of what I intend to do versus what I actually do to like 100%. I literally rarely ever don't complete everything that's on that list. And it's because I'm way better if I'm accountable to Jeremy than I am to myself.
Yeah, which is always a trip to me, because self-accountability is really the strongest form of accountability, but it's also the hardest, which is why it's so great to have self-accountability and send it out to other people, because none of us want to let anyone down at the end of the day, right? Like it's pretty easy to let yourself down.
Totally. I want to hide out, dude. I want to fake stuff. I want to act like I've done stuff that I haven't actually done. And actually, this was born out of the coaching company that when I was doing it with you. We had the greatness tracker.
Right.
I wouldn't fill it out every day. I'd say, oh, I'll fill it out tomorrow. And I wouldn't actually do all the work. Next thing you know, I'm kind of trying to remember shit. And then eventually I was just making things up.
Yes.
For who?
Right.
Because I didn't want to look back. Right.
Yeah.
And so I created this so that every single day I fill out something similar to the greatness tracker as well. Anyway, whatever. I'm going on and on about it.
No, I love it. So if you could do me a huge favor and just email me a copy of that, we will upload a copy in the Mortgage Coach community, you guys, so you guys can all literally use it. Like you can take a look at it, use it. If you have questions, I'll put Rick's contact info in there as well. Like it's like, just use it. But you would talk about a simple tactic. Take a piece of paper, share it with 10 people, say that you're going to start this accountability group, right? And If they join in, they join in. If they
Yeah, they don't
don't,
have
they
to do
don't.
it themselves either.
Yeah,
And Jeremy, I'm totally willing to do a special like class on how to create their own, because everybody's daily navigator is different. Whatever I send you, that's going to be mine. Other people should create their own. I'm happy to, do some kind of class to teach them, how to create their own and
that's
how to
awesome.
create an accountability group, who should be in it and all that stuff.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. So I will make sure that gets posted, you guys, into the community in the document section, so that you guys can just see what it looks like and take action on it. So like I challenge everyone on the call today, right, is to do something that's uncomfortable. Call 10 people, email 10 people, text 10 people, say that, hey, I know the market's tough. I'm looking for some more accountability. Like, would you like to be a part of like a small accountability group where we support each other? I think you'll be shocked as to how many people will say yes. And I think you'll also be shocked to the people that don't say yes, that you'll still have an impact on. Like literally, you'll still have an impact on. So not everything happens in the macro doesn't happen instantly, right? It takes micro actions over and over again. Something else I want to make sure that I leave you all with here today is defining current reality is really important. Like defining current reality, like that's not having rose-colored glasses and just saying, hey, everything's going to be great in 3 months. That's the wrong way to go about it. It's not, head in the sand and just going, hey, it's all going to work out. I'm hearing that a lot. Hey, everything's going to be fine. What if it's not? Like you have to be okay with that too. We have to plan and execute based on that, and making sure that we're using like real, honest leading indicators to guide us, right? Like how many pre-approvals are we getting right now compared to how many are going into contract, right? Like what does that look like right now? Like for me, I'm still generating a tremendous amount of activity as far as like leads and talking to people, but conversion rates for me are down 50%. Meaning people are just waiting, nervous, want the right thing to come along, feeling deflated, and that's okay. But knowing that creates comfort. So don't have your head in the sand. Stick with math. Pursue these relationships. Share things of value with others, and just don't forget that like real relationships are built in the hardest of times. Like they're not built on honeymoons, right? The relationship was usually built way before you got married. I'm using marriage as an example, right? If you are married, like the relationship that you built up to that time is what the relationship is based on. And then the relationship is tested and built stronger in times of adversity. And we're all really going through a time of adversity right now, and we're capable of getting through it. We just got to do it with the right people. So any closing words at all, Rick? I really appreciate you being on and sharing like perspectives from a realtor about relationships and what everything that's going on in the market right now.
First of all, I appreciate you. I appreciate the chance to get in front of everybody, and just to kind of highlight what you were saying too, not just relationships, but for me, the biggest and most dramatic and amazing growth has happened for me when things were the worst. So you could look at this time, if you're at that place, you're like, oh man, that this could be the greatest opportunity for you to really make a significant change that will be long lasting and affect you and your family. And it could be totally amazing. So flip it in your head. This is the greatest opportunity that you have.
Yeah.
And don't let it go.
I believe that. Thank you so much, Rick. Super appreciate it. You guys, I'll make sure that we get the form posted. Of course, you'll get the transcription of this and the recording. Watch it again. There's a whole bunch of little nuggets in here, and just take action today. So Rick, thanks for being on, buddy.
Love you, brother.
I'll see you tomorrow.